Khalghat to Barkheri. Look, Mother Narmada, I have broken my tether and come to you again. Less than 6 months after we had left, we were back at Satak Sangam. The Maharashtrian lady who took care of the temple welcomed us, saying, I was just wondering why you had not arrived yet. But where is the third one? Who? Anil? He has exams now, so he could not come. But why have you brought such a lot of stuff with you? In Sulpanjhari, the wheels will snatch away everything. They will even take the clothes off your backs. We had only brought essentials, though. Food for a week or so, snacks for about 10 days, cooking pots, a rug, 2 seats, 2 changes of clothes, a towel, a torch and a few odds and ends. This time we had not brought the stove or the saving kit, and the wilderness would not begin for about 100 kilometers. Till then we would have some comfort, then we would see. We left Satak Sangam in the morning on 19th May 1985. The old Khalghat bridge was nearby, and the new bridge a little way ahead. The Bombay-Agra highway went over it, so there was a stream of traffic night and day. The hot wind of summer blew fiercely. It was a sweltering day, with the terrible heat of the West Nimar district. Soon we were bathed in perspiration. Our night's lodging was at Gyarhalingi temple, where a sadhu was staying. When I told him we were going to go through the wilderness, he said, You will lose your way. It will take months. The wilderness does not stretch for more than 100 kilometers. How could it take months? Your calculations won't work there. Your lives will be at risk from hunger and thirst. The wheels will take everything you have, everything. You have so much luggage with you that it makes even my mouth water. You could be robbed before the wilderness if you go on like this. I had walked about 1400 kilometers up to this point. Had I met him in the beginning of my journey, I may never have dared to leave home. He went to the nearby village with his disciples, leaving Samlal and I to fend for ourselves. Samlal is an exceptional companion. However heavy the load, however long the road, it makes no difference to him. He is ready to risk his life to follow me. We slept outside. It was the moonless night. The sky seemed studded with diamonds. I was window shopping in the sky when some ants bit me, and I plummeted from sky to earth. There were a lot of ants. We moved several times during the night but still could not sleep properly. On we went in the morning, reaching Maruti Chichli at noon. We stopped at the Dharamsala, where a young sadhu was staying. Do go through the wilderness, he said. It will take you a week or so. It is true that the path is hard, but there's no question of losing the way. All you have to do is follow the river bank. There are no trees in the wilderness, so be careful of the hot sun. Oh yes, all your things will be stolen. Do you have a loincloth? No. Then what will you wear? The wheels will strip you naked. The sadhu was most concerned. He sent for 2 pieces of sackcloth from someone and gave them to us. Please keep these. They will be very useful. How were we going to work in the blazing sun, clad only in sackcloth? What would we eat? How would we sleep? What would become of my sketchbook? A tiny hope lingered in my heart despite the dire warnings. Perhaps we would not be put to such a hard test. We might not have to go through such an ordeal. Still, we kept the sackcloth just in case. Next morning at Kapila Sangam, I saw the Narmada in all her majesty. How wide the river had become. But I knew it would not be long before she became narrow again. At midday, we came to Datwara. The waterfront steps at the temple had been carved out of the rock like a sculpture. We slept outdoors again that night. The sky, glittering with innumerable stars, seemed so fresh and youthful. The night sky seemed like a huge television screen on which we watched the drama of the moon, stars, and planets. Yet the earth is also one of the planets, so my simile was not accurate. The viewer was separate from the screen, but also a part of it. Earlier there was duality, now a feeling of fusion, of oneness. My thoughts pursued the finer points of dualist and non-dualist philosophy until biting ants brought me back to earth. Our sleep was rudely interrupted and we were compelled to move again. The next halt was at Pipalore and after that Rajghat. There was no sign, however, of the eagerly awaited wilderness, only a road bridge over the Narmada and 5 kilometers away, Barwani, a town with government offices and a police station. Leaving Samlal at the Dharamsala in Rajghat, I went to Barwani. I met a senior police officer, introduced myself briefly, and asked him to provide protection through the wilderness. He phoned his junior at once. The police officer's voice was loud. I could hear it too. He was saying, "Well, the Vils will rob him. It's their centuries-old tradition. How can we protect everybody? But he has a letter from the commissioner of the Indore division. We ought to do something for him." Then he said to me, "Why don't you visit the officer yourself?" The handsome young officer was sitting downstairs in the same building. His hearty laughter was infectious. Listening to me attentively, he exclaimed, "So you are a writer. My father is a writer too. I will help you all I can. Don't you worry about anything." My estimation of the police department shot up. The area under his control extended from Rajghat to Barkheri. Barkheri to Jalakhan Sangam fell under the Pati police district. He radioed the information to them. Definite arrangements were made and he said, "Tomorrow morning 2 constables with rifles will come to escort you. You will reach Barkheri on the 3rd day. 2 constables from Pati station will escort you from there to Jalakhan Sangam. Madhya Pradesh ends there and Maharashtra begins. There's no danger from there onwards. You can go on alone." As I was leaving, he added, "I will come to Barkheri myself the day after tomorrow to make sure that everything is in order." It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I went back to Rajghat in the scorching sun. The sky was like a furnace, but I felt happy just the same. There were 3 sadhus staying in our dharamsala. 2 of them were strong young men. The 3rd was somewhat older, thin and gaunt. I had been afraid they would rob us somewhere in the wilderness, but when I returned from Barwani, they had already gone. I sighed with relief. We set out the next morning as soon as the 2 policemen armed with rifles arrived. Is it right to do the Narmada pilgrimage under the protection of the police? But what is wrong in it? The sage Vishwamitra could perform his tapasya only when Rama and Lakshmana protected him with their bows and arrows. The danger was still the same. Only the weapons had changed, from bows and arrows to rifles. We met the three sadhus again, a little farther on. One of them said to the policeman, "You are traveling with rifles. Even Arjuna's bow was no use against the Bhils." The policeman, good lads, ignored his uncomplimentary remark. Soon we arrived at Bhilkhera. A gentleman who stored pilgrims' possessions for safekeeping lived there. When they returned along the opposite bank after crossing the wilderness, he gave their things back to them. In this way, they were saved from robbery. We met him. My great-grandfather, or perhaps his great-grandfather, set out on the parikrama and was robbed by the Bhils. On his return, he initiated this service, which continues to this day. We came to Jangarbha Kuti in the middle of the day. The resident sadhu welcomed us warmly. We were just about to cook lunch when the sadhu trio arrived. The five of us cooked lunch together. The wind was so strong that there was a dust cloud even inside the hut. Evening wore on. One of the sadhus had a fine new shawl. "The Bhils will snatch it," someone said. The sadhu called a villager sitting a little away. The villager came fearfully. "Here, take this." To us, he said, "Why not give it away before someone grabs it from me?" We left in the morning. The three sadhus had decided to stay behind. The wind was fierce and hot, leading up to a sandstorm. Mountains were coming into sight on both sides of the river. Hiranfal Gorge is near Vijasan. In Hiranfal, the mountains close in on both sides. The slender Narmada flows between the rocks. Hiranfal is the gateway to Sulpanjhari, where the Narmada closes her gates and shuts the world out. Barkheri was not very far from there, but it was impossible to go along the river bank. There was a winding mountain road which led us to Barkheri. We stayed at the village headman's house. A motorcycle rode in the afternoon. The police officer had come bouncing over a dirt road through scorching heat. Leaving behind him a trail of dust, a constable on the pillion. His constables would return from here, but others from Pati police station would take their place. After inquiring about our welfare, laughing and causing laughter, he rode off again. Barkheri is a large village with a few shops, the last village with shops before the wilderness begins, just ahead. I told Samlal to stock up on our provisions as we would not be able to replenish them for a while. The Pati policemen Vankhere and Sisodia arrived in the evening. Vankhere was familiar with the area. In a village, one man's guest is everyone's guest. A villager took us up Baba Buda, the highest hill, at dusk. On the summit, I became absorbed in watching the sun setting on the western horizon. Even after the sun had set, I remained gazing at the horizon as if I would see the entire Sulpanjhari from here. 6 of us left the next morning. The 2 constables, 2 villagers whom the constables brought along to show us the way, and Samlal and I. Together we marched towards the most dangerous part of the wilderness. Whatever spells the wilderness had cast, whatever dreams I had woven, the day had come at last to realize them.